o'clock, so it is time to get started. Welcome to Smart Water Wednesdays. My name is Ben Coffey. I am the training manager for the WeatherTrack products, and happy to have you guys here today. The continuation of what we were doing last week. Last week we started this webinar style meeting, and I have put some new players in play here today. My co-host is Ben Slick. Ben, will you introduce yourself to the crowd and tell us a little about?
Good morning, everybody. I've been with HydroPoint for 16 years. My role is business development. I work with some of our enterprise customers, and over my tenure here, I've worked with pretty much all of our customer classes. And it's been just a fun adventure. My background was IT and Silicon Valley startup stuff. So coming into this water efficiency world was a great change of pace, and people really were gracious to me to teach me this business from the ground up, which I now am totally immersed in.
And Ben and I will be your hosts today. Our job is to present the content and talk to Eric. We also have a special web host today. Mr. Chris Manchuk, one of the co-founders of HydroPoint, will be manning the chat box and interacting with all of the people that are watching live today. So if you have questions, put them into the chat box, and Chris will be furiously typing throughout to try and keep up with that. Just so you know, Chris is going to, any questions that get asked multiple times, he'll bring up into the conversation, and he'll answer what he can. Anything technical that gets asked on that chat box, if Chris doesn't answer it, we are going to escalate all of those questions to customer service, and they will provide a response within 48 hours. So please, any questions you have, throw them in that chat box, and we'll be sure to get answers for you.
Great.
All right.
Before we get too down this road, because the theme is spring startups for today's session, I think we should all just take a minute and appreciate the literary side of that. One of my favorite poems is from Emily Dickinson, and it's called A Little Madness in the Spring is Wholesome, Even for the King. But God be with the clown who ponders this tremendous scene, this whole experiment of green, as if it were his own. Short, sweet, apropos.
I love it.
We're all working at home. We're all looking for a little something new. There it is for you. That's my gift to you all.
A little madness in the spring. I love it.
Little madness.
As an irrigator and landscaper, I love the spring. I love to see everything coming back to life. So I thought this was an appropriate time to just talk to the WeatherTrack users about the features that make sense for spring turn-ons. And this is a rubber meets the road kind of conversation. So we are blessed to have Eric Santos as our special guest today. And we're going to talk about spring startups with Eric. Eric, you want to introduce yourself to the crowd? I'm sure most of the people heard you talk about all of your certifications before.
Yeah, no, thank you, Ben. I appreciate you having me. Vice President of Irrigation Services, have been in the irrigation industry for 26 years, most of them with Valley Crest or now Brightview. Yeah, started off as an irrigation laborer in the grain industry. And yeah, just one of the many people out there that really are passionate about water conservation and water use efficiency.
Awesome. Well, thank you for making time to be here today. I'm going to jump into the training content so that we are designing this as a training webinar. So this is all designed to be for WeatherTrack users. And we will design special content to just keep in touch and make sure that we're giving you the tools and the features to stay on top of what you're doing out in the field. So we're going to call this Smart Water Wednesday, and we'll do this every week. And today our theme is spring turn-ons. So getting your WeatherTrack started for spring. And for this, I've selected just a few features that we want to look at that are really specialized for a spring startup. And so just kind of a review of years of experience in doing this for WeatherTrack. a lot of this is universal kind of irrigation stuff, but some of it is WeatherTrack specific as well. So we're just going to run right through the features. We're going to talk about making sure you have the right access. We'll talk about resetting your station depletions and checking your alerts. And then we'll get into a demonstration of the WeatherTrack mobile tools for actually executing the wet check and checking on the health of your irrigation system during the spring startup. So we're going to make that work into the next 10 minutes. So the first section we're going to call check your site before you go. And with a check your site before you go, I always think it's a great idea to log into weathertrack.net and see all of the controllers that you've been authorized to access and manage. Remember that WeatherTrack is a permissions-based system. So with your username and password, you only get access to the controllers that you have been authorized to view and to manage from that controller's owner. And in the springtime, it's always a furious scramble to make sure that everybody has the right access and are assigned to the right sites. So I definitely encourage you to log in with your username and password and make sure that before you go out, you see all of the sites that you expect to see, all of the accounts that you're expected to manage for your customers. So just log in and kind of get ready for spring by looking at your weathertrack.net account and making sure you see everything you expect to see.
And if for some reason there's an account there that you were expecting to see and it's not there, you can send email to support@hydropoint.com in conjunction with your customer to make sure you've got access to those controls.
Absolutely. So customer support@hydropoint.com, or bilingual phone answerers at 1-800-362-8774. So anything you're up against out there, just make sure that you have access before you go. I also want to encourage all of our users to make sure to download WeatherTrack Mobile 3.1. If you haven't updated your app yet, we've added some great features that are especially important during spring turn-on when you'll be walking that entire system and looking at everything. The 3.1 has mobile mapping, which I'll just give you a little flavor for, but great features to look at when you're testing the system.
Hey, Ben, before they download that 3.1, if they're running 2.0, do they need to delete that before they download 3.1?
Not 2.0, but 3.0. If 3.0 is, if your device is set to automatically update, it will have automatically updated. Okay. If you don't have automatic updates turned on your phone, which some people see as a security thing, then we recommend that you uninstall 3.0 and reinstall 3.1. Okay, and I think that will make your job way easier. If you get if you get nothing else out of this message today, use WeatherTrack Mobile 3.1 for your turn-ons. All right, so some of the features that we're going to discuss revolve around this idea of depletion. WeatherTrack uses a calculated depletion model to generate your irrigation schedules. This is the WeatherTrack way of doing things, so this is only for those stations you're using automated by WeatherTrack on. But for your stations where you're using WeatherTrack's weather-based irrigation schedule, we are tracking the depletion on every station. We know how thirsty every station is. We think that underneath every station there's a glass of water, and the growing condition for your plant is adequate as long as that water level is totally full or 0% deplete, and the growing condition for your plant is adequate until that glass of water is half full, or at most 50% deplete. As you can see here, beyond 50% depletion, that plant doesn't have enough water to stay healthy and to continue to grow and do its thing. So one of the things that we are recommending, two of the features that we talk about today wrap around that conversation of depletion. So I want to jump right into a demo here and show you what that looks like here on weathertrack.net. If you are familiar with weathertrack.net, you will see that last night's update now provides a weather prediction on your manage page. So to catch everybody up, I've logged into weathertrack.net. I've gone to the Smart Irrigation tab and the Manage Controller page. And on this page, we are going to look at individual station depletions. So I scroll down here and I look at my stations, and you see I have a column called current depletion, where I can see the current level of water in every glass, or the current depletion level of every station. And what we recommend for spring turn-ons is that you recognize that that ground is fully saturated with all that winter water, and we want to start all of our depletions at 0% so that we can use that good spring water. This will save a lot of water in some circumstances. And we'll talk about why. But to reset depletion for those stations is something that I do as a routine. You can either do that here on the manage page with this button called update depletion for all stations. If I click on that, I can select a depletion for every station and it will update. I recommend in spring you update all stations to 0%. Now, once you've done that, if you want, you can go back through and individually set depletions on any station by checking the box here on the manage page. And then under that current depletion column, you can reset the depletion of any individual station as well. So save yourself a lot of extra water, because sometimes in winter, if the system wasn't properly winterized or set to winterization, a lot of your stations will be at 125% depletion, which means that while the groundwater is still there, the controller thinks that it needs to deliver more than 2 full cycles to catch that station back up. So by sending the 0 depletion, we'll save a whole lot of gallons on the spring startup. One of the other things that we need to touch on is taking the controller out of winterized or off and getting it ready to go. You can see that here on the manage page. If I go into the controller mode button, I can just turn that controller from winterized to on, or from off to on here at WeatherTrack Central or weathertrack.net. Now, I do want to cover that on the controller itself, because that is a little bit tricky. If you go up to the controller itself, you might see this winterized message. And to get rid of that winterized message, to get your controller back and ready to run in the springtime, we hit the off button, and this brings us to the off screen where you see the winterized, and it asks you to push the star button to resume, or to bring that irrigation schedule back on. So I hit that star button, and the controller will turn back on and allow you to do what you need to do for your spring startup. All right, and then last but not least, we want to look at the WeatherTrack Mobile and some of the great features here that you can rely on for spring startup. The first of which is the your activation, right? Your manual test. So if I want to go out to a site, when I pull up WeatherTrack Mobile, the first thing I see is my sites page, and I'll select the site that I want to manage. Note that the site closest to your location has been filtered to the top of the list. I go through and I choose a site, and this will spell out all of the controllers that I see on that site and a little information about each one. So I can go in and go to my stations tab, and this is where manual irrigation happens. This is where the spring wet check is going to live for you. So first we select the number of minutes we want to run on each station. So if I'm an irrigation tech, I'm used to running the 2-minute test, set that up for 2 minutes, and then just touch the station that I want to see turn on. And this will just send the signal to the cloud and back to the controller to turn this station on. And you'll have to forgive the speed. My demonstration software slows this down a little bit. Oh, there it goes. Ready, set, go. And once the station is running, for every station, you have the ability to go in and check the, well, once it's running, you'll check the hardware. Also, while it's running, I want you to hit this settings button, and check the settings for that station. Go through and look at the auto mode settings. Make sure that you've got the right sprinkler type, the right plant type, the right sun exposure for that station. And any changes that you see need to be made can be made here from WeatherTrack Mobile. So it's a great time to not only check the hardware, but check the programming of each station individually as well. And the last thing we want to look at here on the app lives under the controller settings button. One of the big things that you'll be dealing with out on spring startup is fixing the things that winter broke. And generally, the alerts are designed to keep you informed of all of that. So the WeatherTrack is testing all of the electrical, all of the hydraulic components in most cases, and as all of your communication and a little bit about each program. So anything that the controller wants you to know, it will put here on the alerts page. And then if you see something here that you don't understand, we've integrated training tools to make it easy to drill down on this information. So if you get to this screen and you say, what the heck is station low flow? You just push the button that says low flow. It'll give you all of the information that you need for that alert, specific stations that you need to go look at, as well as a definition and possible causes of what has caused this alert, places to start looking for a solution. It's all in here. So even a video, if you want, if you read all this and you still are looking for answers, watch the video that I made about this alert. I do it from my irrigation tech lenses, and I just trying to find what that alert is, what it means to you as a user, and how to fix it, or where I'd start to fix it as an irrigation tech. So those alerts are big, a big part of what we're trying to do. So that kind of covers, oh, one last thing I wanted to look at. I skipped over on my demo from weathertrack.net, and that is, before you go out, I definitely recommend checking not only this manage page for every controller that you're going to go look at and reset those depletions, but also this alerts page where you can pull up the alert list and see all of the alerts for all of the controllers that you manage, and just be fully informed before you go out to that site. Know what you're up against. Use this information to make sure when you go out to the site, you have the right tools, the right parts, all of the right stuff to make sure that you're turning those systems on as quickly and efficiently as you have the capability to do with the information that WeatherTrack provides.
And if some of your team hasn't been thoroughly trained on this particular page, if Ben mouses his cursor over to the first alert, which we see master valve override, wherever you see those little dots, if you click on that, it'll bring up context sensitive help that'll let you learn more about that particular alert, how to deal with it, what caused it, what you might do to fix it, and then how to clear the alert when it's finished. And for more information there, you can also click on seeing a video there too. So
oh yeah, so the alert, the general alert information tied to each alert is under alert type. If you click on description, it gives you the details for this alert, what your controller measured that caused the alert. And then to Ben's point, we also have an access point to our YouTube channel that has all of our alert videos and all of our alert content. All right, so that is my spring turn on stuff. And Eric,
Hey Ben,
have any tips and tricks for the crew to?
Hey Ben.
Chris, go ahead.
One quick question came up here that I think will benefit everybody before we switch on over to Eric. It was asked if you could explain the difference between off, winterized, and shutdown as it pertains to depletion, so that people will know, you know, why they might get to 125% or what spikes to look for.
Good question. So if we go over here to our manage page and controller mode here, there are, when you're winterizing, after, in my area, we blow out the pipes. Where Eric is, he just has to turn them off because you guys don't get ground freeze out in California as much as we do. But if you turn this controller to off, the controller thinks that it still needs to track all of the ET for every station. And so in the off mode, every station continues to get thirstier and thirstier, thinking that it needs to irrigate. But we know that with dormant landscapes, we don't need to continue to track that Mother Nature will provide. So when you're winterizing, instead of leaving the system in off where all stations continue to accumulate depletion and get thirstier and thirstier, the winterized feature suspends those depletions where they're at, so you don't across the winter start to get high depletion alerts and other alerts that don't really mean anything while the system is dormant. Does that answer your question, Chris?
Yes, thank you, Ben.
You bet. Eric, any tips and tricks from the Brightview world on turning systems on?
No, you stole most of my thunder there, Ben. But great. You covered a lot of things I was going to mention. But one thing I would like to add is for Brightview, during the startup process, the first step really has nothing to do with the startup itself. It just comes in preparing for the day before. So the first thing is communicating with the client, letting them know that you're going to be out there. That's always a top priority. Making sure we have plenty of inspection sheets handy to document deficiencies. And even though if you do have access to Asset Manager, or a lot of our branches have access to electronic maps, we still encourage that they have hard copies of those maps because they may be using their phone to turn on zones. Some customers may give us pre-approval to take care of things as we find them during that startup. And we want to go ahead and flag those as we go along. But maybe just a couple of other things. Once we get that backflow preventer back on, if we're in winter markets and the backflow's tested and we go to repressurize the system, and we try to purge out all the air. One thing we want to do is go back and let's look at the water meter just to make sure we don't have any leaks. If the water meter is turning fast, then we kind of just abandon the process of doing that inspection. We start looking for the extensive leak. If it turns out that the water meter is spinning slowly, then we actually proceed with the inspection and start looking for things like a weeping valve. If there is a slow mainline leak, it may take several hours or maybe even several days for those to surface. But let's assume that you're sure the meter isn't turning. There's some people that are firm believers in checking and recording the dynamic operating pressure from one season to the next. So they may go to the zone that has the highest flow rate, go and fire up that zone and then record the pressure. Some people, if they have a conventional controller, they'll just take that pressure reading on that zone and stick it inside the controller. And then, but if you have a cloud-based controller, oftentimes you can record that value in the notes section. Because we've all had those jobs where the cities come out to work on a city main line during the winter, and maybe when the city main line was repressurized, somebody forgot to open up one gate valve on the side of the city main line loop, and the pressure was much lower. And then if we have flow sensing on that project, we find that all of our flow thresholds are sending us false alarms. So it's just a good practice if you have flow sensing, and you may be in a situation if the pressures change significantly, you may have to relearn your flows. And then maybe the other item is before you do that startup, some of our teams like to have the controller just go through a 2-minute cycle. Some of the benefits to this is that as the valves are turning on, we're purging out the air, so we're not standing around during our first initial activation of those zones. But the other benefit is if you have a controller that has the ability to measure current, the controller will detect and alert any electrical problems that may have arisen over the winter. If you have a conventional controller that doesn't have current sensing, then we either take out our good old-fashioned multimeter and ohm out all the zones, or we use a clamp meter to check the current on each zone.
And if you have a weather track controller, the valve test happens at the program A start time, even when the controller is off. So you don't have to turn it back on to find out that information. It will be running all winter long.
Cool. Thank you, Ben. Yeah, but that just takes us into doing that inspection. We encourage our people to do their irrigation inspections using a remote and having maps. What we strongly encourage is our people just going to the controller and starting a 2-minute cycle test. That's probably one of the worst ways you can do an inspection. Some people may argue, well, if you rewire a controller so that the zones fire in a sequence to where you can walk the zones, then you don't need a map or you don't need a remote. But the problem is here, 2 minutes may be too much on some zones and 2 minutes might not be enough on other zones, and you end up missing items. But yeah, I think you pretty much covered it, Ben. Yeah, I was going to mention it's as a final item is once you complete the inspection, just keeping tabs on where your soil moisture depletion levels are at over the first week or so.
That is awesome insight. I definitely love your perspective on checking the water and making sure that meter isn't spinning, protecting every drop. That's a great insight and great perspective. Now I'm going to transition into something that I hope to make part of our weekly webinar and put you on the spot, Eric Santos. I'm going to ask every guest from here on out, and you are the first one. What does WeatherTrack save you?
Gosh, that's a tough one. How much time do we have? What does probably time? Time would be the number one item, and just having visibility into specifically visibility into the flow. And I'd probably have to say one of the things I love the most about HydroPoint WeatherTrack is having flow information and knowing when someone's using water when no water is supposed to be being used, and knowing right away if somebody went over, bled the master valve. It could be our maintenance crews. Sometimes we have no idea who's utilizing water, but I think having those proactive alerts where we get the information sent to us as opposed to trying to figure out, hey, what was going on after the fact. We get a water bill and it may be 30, 60 days after the fact, and we find out there is a leak. So I'd probably just have to say time. Time's extremely valuable right now.
Absolutely. Time is a precious resource for us. Absolutely. So I appreciate you making time for us, Eric. This is something we're quite honored to have you be a part of the first format, the first webinar. It really means a lot. Our partnership has lasted many years, and I'm proud to mention Brightview as one of our leading partners in this water management game. So I really appreciate you making time for us. Ben Slick?
Eric, thank you very much for time, but more importantly, thank you and all the people on this webinar for what you do.
Oh,
I think we lost Ben there.
I think we lost Ben. I think what Ben is saying is thank you.
Webinars are aimed at making you more productive, helping you save more. My internet connection is unstable. It turns out.
We lost you there for a minute. I think what Ben is trying to say is thanks to all of you essential employees out there on the front lines, keeping our landscapes beautiful and risking your own safety and healthy lives to make sure that we all continue to live in this beautiful world. Thank you for everything that you do. Stay safe, and we will talk again next week. Thanks for tuning in, and look forward to Smart Water Wednesdays coming to you from Ben and Ben. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.